Let's talk about Tony Romo. What should the Cowboys do, Max, with their high-profile backup quarterback?
Look, it's dead money if you try to get out of it. I'm telling you right now, and I maintain this all along, and guys, it's not because I don't think Romo is excellent. Stephen A., I think you underrate Romo. I think Romo is excellent. But his recent injury history, all in his back, up and down his back, and the backbone is connected to the backbone, last I checked, suggests strongly that he cannot be relied upon to stay upright throughout the entire course of a season. So, what you have in Romo is a perfect backup in Dallas. If that's a sunk cost anyway, you keep him around in case of emergency, break glass. If anything happens to Dak at any point, over a short period of time, you're going into the playoffs, you need a guy for 3 or 4 games. Yes, Romo can stay upright for 3 or 4 games.
Keep him.
However, nevertheless, that's the best use of the resources.
I'm telling you right now, the Texans.
You are not going to get much for Romo. I don't think the Broncos or the Texans would give you much. They can't rely on him to stay healthy.
If Max Kellerman had his way, Tom Brady and Tony Romo would be the best backup quarterbacks in the league today. He would have both amazing quarterbacks backing up guys like Jimmy Garoppolo. Oh, Brady, you're 5 months away.
One more year.
Yeah, Max, you're 5 months away from this argument. I'm just seeing a little head here.
Okay.
You got Rick Brady on the bench. Tony Romo, why are we talking? We just lost. We really have to trade Tony Romo today. We have to trade him today.
Yeah, get anything for him. No one's going to give you anything good for Romo.
The dream scenario for Romo is Houston. #1 defense in the league, but they got all that money tied up in quarterback. I don't know how they can make it happen. They are literally a quarterback away from competing for Super Bowls, and Tony Romo is just a few miles up I-45. If they can pull it off, that's where he should go. But I understand the money thing. I get it.
I agree with Will about Houston because not just the team that he would be going on right up the road, but the division he'd be playing in. It would be a greater chance of success for him playing in the AFC South. I just think it's one of those situations where you need to move on. You owe it to Dak to move on from Romo. All of this noise about is Romo coming back? Is he ready to go? Could he be ready to go? Et cetera, et cetera. Yes, it ended up to be null and void, but in the end, if you are a rookie, to be subjected to that kind of noise, we're lucky he had the poise to summarily dismiss it and go out there and ball and handle it. But they didn't know that would be the case, and Jerry Jones didn't care.
Best ability, Stephen A?
He wanted Romo in there.
Best ability? Availability. Romo will never be available over the course of a whole season.
Can we hug one more time?
You don't need to. I mean, your point is made. You're suffering.
And I'll be back, just like the Cowboys.
Time out. You'll be back just like the Cowboys. Typical, delusional, disgusting, nauseating Cowboy fan. Not even 24 hours removed, and here you are talking about next year. Y'all are done.
Let me tell you.
You are gone.
Let me tell you something.
You didn't even win a playoff game. Matter of fact, get the hell off the show. You lost.
I'm going to tell you something.
Lost, and that is that.
You something. Neither me nor the Cowboys are going away anytime soon.
Oh, y'all are away.
Choke it down.
You are away.
Actually, we'll be here for a
you're
while.
gone now.
All right,
Actually,
so good to see you.
Both things are untrue.
You got youth on your side. The Dallas Morning News with the headline, suited and booted. It was the Cowboys' 5th straight divisional playoff loss, and they now have just 2 playoff wins in 20 years. Jason Garrett received a lot of criticism post-game for that play calling. We brought back Will Kane for this conversation.
How many playoff wins do you need to win a Super Bowl in a single season,
3.
Stephen A?
3 minimum.
Got it. At some point.
At this point, it's 23 years to win a
At
Super
least
Bowl.
he didn't bring up the Giants,
At some points, this becomes unattractive, Max. I'm giving you a piece of advice.
Stephen A., I want to start with you. Would you consider moving on from Jason Garrett?
Yes, I would. And and I'm being very, very serious here. Keep in mind that Jason Garrett is my coach of the year, and I would still consider moving on. Here's why. I'm going to explain.
I hope so.
If you remember, the Dallas Cowboys won 2 Super Bowl titles. Jerry Jones gets rid of Jimmy Johnson. Why? Because of their relationship, et cetera, et cetera. The prerequisite, this notion that you have to have a winning, you can have a winning record and that automatically ensures your stability. I think over time we've seen examples where that has gone out the window. Chip Kelly, for example, was a bad influence in Philadelphia, but he had a 26-21 record. Went to the playoffs 1 out of 2 years. They didn't nosedive. And so what happens is you look at a bevy of situations that have taken place over the years in the National Football League. There comes a point in time where sometimes guys are gone because you might not be that guy to get us over the hump. I want to be clear. Jason Garrett did a good job this year. Jason Garrett, some would say, can coach. Jason Garrett, some would say, has had a bad rap. I'm looking at a guy that's been a coach here since he took over in 2010. They went 6-10 that year. They were 3 back-to-back 8-8 seasons, back-to-back-to-back. Then he had a winning year. Then they went 4-12 last year. He has another winning season this year, but not one single playoff victory in seven seasons as a head coach. I'm sorry, one playoff victory. I apologize. When they beat Detroit.
I don't forget.
When they beat Detroit.
There is one.
How could you?
I'm simply saying, again, I would have a hard time letting him go. But if Jerry Jones sat up there and said, I'm getting rid of Jason Garrett, it's not because he's incompetent. It's not because he can't coach. I have a small window of opportunity right now. I'm not getting any younger. I look at the young talent that we have. I'm not interested in waiting to see y'all grow and evolve together. I kind of need it now. And he made that as the reason. I couldn't knock him for
They
it.
got a young offensive line, a very young quarterback, and a young running back. They're all great. I mean, like, barring injury, they could all wind up in the Hall of Fame. And so I don't think there's real time pressure. Jason Garrett had a problem at the end of this game in terms of clock management, essentially. But let's not forget, like, Marty Schottenheimer once upon a time. He can't win in the playoffs. How'd it go when you got rid of Marty Schottenheimer? Did you like it more or less? Andy Reid has a problem with clock management and timeouts at the end of games and stuff. You think Andy Reid's a good coach or not? There's so much more. That's one facet of being a coach that sticks out like a sore thumb when it doesn't go well. But there are so many others, and Jason Garrett has done an excellent job. And I would love for the Cowboys to get rid of him because it would speak to dysfunction, which I wish upon the Cowboys.
Yeah, so number one, it's either just completely crazy analysis from someone to say within a 30-second span that they think Jason Garrett's coach of the year, and second, for them to be fired, or it's sabotage in and of itself right here, hoping that the Cowboys do something so completely inane. You would never fire a guy. Max, your analysis is spot on. There's many aspects to coaching. Jason Garrett did not do a good job in this game. There were failures from this game from beginning to end. You talked about clock management. You don't come out with the game with procedural mistakes, Bryce Butler getting huddle penalties, getting guys 12 men on the field. These were coaching problems. The first quarter and a half of the Cowboys game plan were coaching problems, and that's Jason Garrett's fault because the guy at the top is the one that has to be responsible for that. But building a team, building a franchise that can win 13 games, that is set up to be competing for Super Bowls for the next 5 years, that's also part of the job. Chip Kelly's a horrible example. The ones you gave are good. I'll give you another name, Marvin Lewis. This is a guy who gets his team back in the playoffs in year after year and has playoff failures. You're right on Jason Garrett's playoff failures. You're right on that. But it's not time to react emotionally, as you're so apt to do, with histrionics and fire a man that you would give the Coach of the Year award to. You let this play out. The process is in place. This team will win a Super Bowl in the next 5 years. It will happen. I heard you mock that point earlier. It's going to happen.
First of all, a couple of things. I'm insulted by anybody sitting there and looking at my emotions and talking about I'm apt to get people fired. I wanted Jeff Fisher fired. 22 years, 16 years missing the playoffs. I wanted Marvin Lewis fired. 14 years on a job, not one single playoff experience. I wanted Gus Bradley fired because the team gave up on him. I wanted Rex Ryan fired because 6 consecutive years, this man has been a head coach and has not had one single playoff appearance. But let me go to the other playoff stuff. I recall a guy by the name of John Fox. Took Denver to a Super Bowl. Went 13-3, 13-3, 12-4. What did John Elway elect to do? Go with Gary Kubiak. We need something different.
Mistake,
I'm simply saying to you, Kubiak won the Super Bowl.
Yeah, but
my point to you
you
is
made some good points about Kubiak.
Listen, what I'm saying is that I'm not looking at what your abilities are as a coach based on your record. I'm simply saying if I'm Jerry Jones and I made the decision to let Jason Garrett go, I don't think you can summarily insult it because, again, it's not just about, oh, all right, I know you could coach. It's about, look, I got some young Lions. There's a window of opportunity. I'm not so sure you can get it over the hump.
Why are you putting none of the blame on Scott Linehan, though? Why is this all on the head coach?
Because ultimately they're answerable to the head coach. Let me ask a question, and I'll just throw this out there. And it's on a collegiate level. Fair enough. But this same team, with some of the mistakes that they made, one could argue discipline, one could argue coordinators, et cetera, et cetera. If a Nick Saban were coaching the team, what would we say?
I want to say something about the job Jason Garrett did, though. Here's the bottom line. The Cowboys were so good, even in that game, that with all the mistakes Jason Garrett made, and that's partly to a credit to the general manager, Stephen Jones, really, and also to the players and the head coach. They were so good that in spite of all the mistakes, Will, you pointed many of them out, and we agree with them strategically. Why aren't you running the ball, etc., clock management at the end. Despite being down 3 scores early in the game, they never gave up. They clawed all the way back, and they eventually lost to the best quarterback who's ever done it. And when they did lose, the field goal was good by this much from 50 yards plus. So that's a hell of a way to lose.
That final point needs to be underlined with exclamation points. A rookie quarterback came back from down 21-3 to tie the game twice with what many consider to be one of the best quarterbacks of all time playing at the peak of his game. You come out here wearing the jersey. I'm the one giving Aaron Rodgers credit. I'm the one talking about what an incredible performance was. In no way does losing to Aaron Rodgers yesterday, I can point to mistakes too, and I have. Jason Garrett made mistakes. But at the end of the day, you don't fire someone for losing to Aaron Rodgers playing at an immortal level.
But Will Kane, I never said he should be gone because of Aaron Rodgers. I'm not
because
saying
he
that.
lost.
No, I'm saying to you, he's been on the job a number of years. This was his 7th season, 6.5, basically. You're right, it's 6 full seasons. He has 1 playoff victory. I'm simply saying there are guys that deserve to be head coaches in this in this league because their body of work have proven they know the game. But still, for a particular situation, they might not be ideal. That's not insulting.
I'll give you this.
That's all I'm saying.
I'll give you this.
That's all I'm saying.
Jason Garrett should not be untouchable. You make some points, and as a fan, I'm watching, and I want to see some results soon. But now, that's history.
Yeah, and I do think part of the reason they abandoned the run initially is because after seeing the Giants game and those Giants receivers that dropped the ball, but they were able to get open against that secondary, so that's where all the passing came from initially.
If I'm 74 or 75 years old, and I think the clock is ticking, which Jerry Jones has been on the record saying, and I have the young Lions that I have, I might ask myself that question. My window is closing. I don't know how much time I have left.
Right.
Do I think this dude can do it now? You are so disrespectful.
He is going to fall off a cliff.
Shut the hell up.
That's not even close to my best.
They're wrong. And I don't give a damn that they agree with me or not. When noted comedian and host of the hit show Family Feud, Steve Harvey, exited from a meeting with President-elect Donald Trump last week, calling him, quote, a great man, end quote. To say there was a backlash would be a gross understatement. The word coon and sellout was immediately thrown out. His friend and contemporary D.L. Hughley wasn't happy either, aiming his vitriol at Trump instead of Steve Harvey. And of course, it provided the perfect excuse for naysayers to accuse sports greats like Jim Brown and Ray Lewis of being used as photo ops weeks ago. But on a day like today, when we celebrate the birthday of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., along with his undeniable historical impact, perhaps it's time for all of us to see the big picture, to essentially pay more attention to the issues permeating our society, what it'll take to resolve them, and connecting ourselves to who we ultimately can hold accountable, rather than focusing on disdain for that very individual in a position to make a difference, knowing that's not about to get us anywhere. Has anyone thought about what impact it could have if Trump spoke to LeBron James? How about Steph Curry? How about Mike Tomlin, Tony Dungy, Chris Paul, Adam Jones of the Baltimore Orioles, or a host of conscientious sports figures connected to communities, committed to helping inner cities ascend from an abyss that has plagued us for decades? What then? Will they be sellouts too? Just for meeting with the man? For expressing their concerns? For articulating what ails these communities and providing ideas on how to resolve problems? The answer would be no, at least for anyone with sense. So here's hoping Trump calls all those guys and then some. So why have a problem with Steve Harvey? While few of us are interested in hearing praise for Trump at this moment, let's not confuse that with recognizing the position he's in, respecting it, and using our intellect to decipher where we go from here, not our emotions. After all, how far has that gotten us?
Well said, Stephen A. An interesting proposition there as well. If you want more on today's Final Take, go to our Facebook and Twitter pages. Leave your comments and thoughts there. We want to hear from you. Also want to mention tomorrow, Matthew McConaughey will join us on the show. Looking forward to that. And we'll also have the First Take, Your Take contest winners will be here to take on Stephen A. and Max. So It'll be a lot of fun. Very well said, Stephen A. Great point.
Thank you. We got to do that. Listen, you don't have to love the man, but
Well, if you want to hold someone accountable, they have to be willing to take responsibility.
I agree with that.
And if you don't think they will, then maybe you don't meet with them.
I agree with that. But
a mute point.
you can't find out, particularly if you're a member of the black community, until you meet and talk with them and then see what they do.
Fair enough.